Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Rei-Lin, and after a very long hiatus, I am back, and this time I'm going to do a little repeater tutorial for Dauntless, the newest weapon on the block. Came out just a couple of months ago, and of course, it's the first fully ranged weapon to hit Dauntless, and so I figured I might as well go ahead and give my own thoughts on it and do a little bit of a tutorial because it is a different style of weapon than obviously Dauntless has had before. So here we go. We got your abilities here, and it does take a little bit of time to mess around with this. Now, I can't really show you the really cool thing, I don't think, because it does have a customize option. I'll have to show you that separately. But for now, out in the field at least, we got basic shots and skill shot on your right click. You got a thrown ability, which is your Q. And you have reload, and the important part of all of the reload stuff is the empowered reload, which we will get to. So let's start off with the repeaters. And if I call them pistols, that's what I'm talking about. But you see, you can't sprint. That's your first thing you need to understand. You cannot sprint when your pistols are out. Now you can put them away and sprint all you want. It is a pretty quick animation to put them away and a fairly decent animation to pull them out. Now, as they are pistols, you can shoot. If you look at the top left, you'll see the UI for the repeaters here. You see that number 4 becomes a 3. That's your ammunition, and you do have to reload it. One thing about the pistols, if you probably played Monster Hunter World or any other game that has any kind of ranged weapon, like say Overwatch and McCree, it does have damage fall off. So the further away you are when you pull the trigger, the less damage you do up until you do no damage whatsoever. How do you know if you're in range? Well, you look at the cursor. You notice how the cursor is white? That means I'm getting reduced damage. However, when I move closer, you see how it turns red? Now I'm going to do full damage. As long as that cursor stays red, when I shoot, I'm going to do full damage to whatever I'm shooting at, whether it's a tree or a monster. So keep that in mind. Your damage fall off, as you can see, is not that far. So ranged weapon it is, but it's definitely not, say, this kind of range. It's not a sniper rifle. It's not a rifle. They are pistols. Now, even at this range, you're still going to hit what you shoot at, and you're still going to do damage. It's just not going to be a ton of damage. If we assume that in range like this, each shot was 100 damage, once it turns white, it's going to fall off pretty much every foot or so back that you go by about 10. So here it would be 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, and then it's just going to stop doing damage whatsoever. Even though I might hit it, it's not going to do any damage. So keep that in mind. These are not your sit on the cliff and make the monster chase you around while shooting. It will take you some getting used to stay this close to actually do that much damage. Okay, so that's your ranged, and that's how you know that you have damage fall off. You do have an ammo reload. Now, once you run out of ammo, there's two things that are going to happen. You can sit at 0, and then all you have to do is hit R to reload. Or, if you left click again with no ammo, it automatically reloads. This can be a pain in your ass, especially if you don't really want to reload. You can't turn it off. So if you're spamming away, and you accidentally overspam when you hit 0, you can see you're stuck reloading. It's an animation. Now you can kind of move while you're reloading, but you can't roll. You're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to get hit. That's the problem. So make sure you're paying attention to how many shots you have left in your pistols. And when you reload, that you're able to actually get through that couple of seconds where you're just standing there. Now your Q is this. And this changes depending on what you have for your grips and your barrels. Basically gives you a buff. Attack speed, damage. Okay? It's a really nice buff. And your right click is a little Kamehameha. Now, both of those have just a cooldown. Throw it, this gives you a buff. Now when you're empowered, what it means by empowered shots. Empowering means that you have to be close to the behemoth when you reload. If you do, it'll pull some aether off of them and empower your shots. You'll notice that your bar, your right-click bar, and your Q, those bars will change color. Okay? And when they change color, your shots are doing more damage. Your right click's going to change. Instead of shooting one big Kamehameha, big bang, it's going to shoot 3 in a spread. So you're going to do a lot more damage. Your Q, instead of just having one sword, it's going to have multiple swords. And when you run over it, instead of just giving you a buff, it gives your whole team a buff. So that's what it means by empowered. Now, the problem I have with the empowered is, and they have made changes to it, is that for the most part, you gotta be right on the ass of the behemoth, because it's not necessarily you're pulling it off of the entire body of the behemoth. There's usually a specific spot on the behemoth, maybe the center of the model, maybe it's the head, maybe it's one of the legs. When you see, once you get close, you can tell where it's pulling the aether from, but that is generally like right like this. You got to be like this close to start pulling the aether off. Some of the behemoths are slightly different, but even a behemoth, say, as big as like Hellion or Pangar, you would think, considering they're basically as big as that entire rock wall, that you could stand like here and empower your stuff. You can't. You'd have to literally get almost down over here, assume this is his leg, and pull it off of his leg. It's actually kind of awkward, and I wish they would change it to where, as long as my cursor is in the red and I'm doing full damage, any reload should empower my weapon. Getting this close when I'm holding ranged weapons just feels kind of clunky and stupid to me. Plus, the fact that you can't dash and sprint with your guns out just makes it that much more of a high risk. And I don't think there's much of a reward. You know, it's not like the pistols are hitting for millions of damage compared to a sword or anything else. You just happen to get, I can stand like 15 feet away and shoot something rather than standing right up on them like you have to with all the other melee. So it is some comfortable range, but it's not nearly as cut and dry as that. So when the repeaters came out, I wasn't that impressed with them, and I'm still not impressed with them. And I'm hoping they're going to change some things around. Now, one of the big things here is you'll notice you don't have any combos. There's no left, 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 right. There's no right, right, left, left. There's absolutely nothing that you do except left click your way to victory with these things, with an occasional right click and the buffs. That's not to say that there isn't gameplay involved that's different than every other weapon. It just feels a little flat and boring, especially if you're doing this for a very long period of time. So you have to keep that in mind, that these are not the flashiest things around when you're wanting to show off how cool you are in Dauntless. So let's go ahead and we're going to start. Now, you can empower your weapons just like that. See, it pulled it kind of out of his butt. And then you'll see that this turned into a green bar and my right click became bright blue. So like this, say I've empowered my shot, I shoot once, I can empower it again. As long as you have to reload, it doesn't matter if it's 12 shots, 1 shot, you can always reload and it will always empower. You can keep your buff up. And you can see, you can attack pretty fast. But see, your empowerment doesn't last forever. But it does give you a little bit more safety. I can sit here out of his range. But you see right there. See, I got hit because I was reloading. So let him do his little angry face. And then get in here and... You do attack faster with that buff. So you can really pew-pew your way to victory a lot of times. So for me... you don't want to reload unless you know you can re-empower your shots, because there's almost no reason to. But if you can keep empowered, and this is why it sucks that you can't, But you see, I have to kind of be right there where he is. So you see how the guns also glow when you're empowered? You can see that it doesn't have like a timer or anything counting down. You just have to get a feel for when you're going to need to re-empower your shots. Basically, if I have an opening to reload, I'll go ahead and like stand here like this and pull it out of him just like that. And that is The repeaters. That's the gameplay, and you're going to just do that repeatedly. You're constantly going to throw the buff down. You constantly want to be empowered because there's very little reason for you not to be empowered while you're using the repeaters. The more empowered you are, the more shots are going to do more damage. You don't really gain any extra range, but they do more damage. Your buff is always going to give you more attack speed. It's going to give you more damage. It's going to give your group more damage and more attack speed. The spread shot that you do with your right click is going to do more damage because it's hitting far more parts of the behemoth than normal. So there's absolutely no downside to always being empowered. But that doesn't mean you can't do damage. Of course, you can always do some kind of damage empowered or not. But it's to your benefit in almost every aspect of it to stay empowered. So if you have a chance to get close to a monster and unload, like if you've staggered it, if you've knocked a part off, if it's knocked out, if it's electrocuted and it's laying on the ground, go in there and spam, reload, spam, and just keep knocking the shit out of it because you're going to do a lot more damage empowered when you've got a big opening than when you don't. Now, the unique thing about the repeaters is the fact that you can customize them. Unlike your other weapons where you're just upgrading them and they come with whatever they come with, the pistols, repeaters, they have different grips and they have different chambers, prisms, and barrels. Now the grips, this is where your buff comes from. You see you got a saboteur grip that throws a landmine. It can stagger if it's empowered. It's fairly useless. It's hard to set up. You can do some funky stuff if you don't have somebody in your group that can boop. This will let you boop. But it's like I said, it's hard to set up. It takes a minute to arm it. It's just not as useful as getting 15% increased damage and attack speed for 12 seconds to your whole team. So the reason why I don't have everything is I haven't been playing much Dauntless. I've been waiting for them to put out a lot more content. I didn't necessarily like the repeaters that much over some of the other weapons that I was having fun with, so I haven't gone balls to the wall to get everything for them unlocked. Your ballistic chambers, it's just pure damage. This doesn't really change much, at least not that I've seen. This is where you're firing an explosive missile in a line, so there's your damage. If it's empowered, it shoots 3. The barrel, this is the same as elemental weapons, only you decide when and what element you're going to use. So, if you wanted an umbral, you've got that. If you got storm, you've got that. Frost from Pangar, Shock, Standard, you got the Blaze Barrel. All these are just how you change it to an element. So you don't have to change a whole weapon, you literally just change the barrel out, and then you'll be good to go. Now the prisms, I've only got 2. Right now, they gain increased movement speed when you're at 6 or less ammo. If you're more about going to the map to do gathering, this is actually kind of useful. You just shoot down to 6, and then you'll run a lot faster everywhere you go. That's when you put the weapons away, not necessarily when you're just jogging around with them out. The sharpshooter, right now this is what I got. If I attack the same part multiple times, I do more and more damage. There's a couple other prisms. The big one is that the more damage you do, you start doing more damage, which is really useful. And I haven't got to that point yet. There's a couple of quests I need to finish that up. But you see that they're not exactly weak in any way, shape, or form. But the disadvantage is of course, they're not purely ranged. You're going to have to get into melee range to do the most damage possible with your repeaters because of the damage fall off. They're safer than any other weapon, I think, in the game. And since you can't sprint, you have tons and tons of stamina to dodge roll, and so you're gonna be really hard to hit as long as you're great at dodging. Some of the monsters like Karabak, for example, that fly, uh, you can easily keep shooting them where the people in melee range won't have as much that they can hit, and things of that nature. So there are advantages to it. Um, it just doesn't feel that fun to play because you're literally just left click spamming, throwing out a Q now and then right clicking when the cooldown is up. So there's a lot of different builds that you can do with the repeaters that make it really fun. But you got to remember, like I said, it's still a work in progress. Um, the developers have asked that we give them all kinds of feedback. They got a lot of feedback People didn't like the fact that when you take your repeaters out, it shifts to over the shoulder, and thus and it also kind of zooms the camera in. You may have noticed that it makes it harder to see your surroundings. So sometimes you get hit because you can't see, and people just wanted more options to change that around. Uh, and they're working on all of this. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes that come to the repeaters in the future. I just hope that it doesn't take another 6 months to do so. And that is pretty much it for this little tutorial. I didn't want it to go too damn long, but that is the basics of the repeaters. I'm sure this stuff is going to change as time goes on. And obviously, they've made some very big changes to the game. The animation has gotten a lot better. They've added the cell vendor for trading and hopefully, getting some cells that you actually want. The maps and the town are much better rendered. They have smoothed out a lot of the gameplay issues with the frame rates and stuff like that. So things are getting more and more optimized as time goes on, and I think Phoenix Labs is really on a roll. So that is all for this video. I do apologize for the long delay. A lot of the YouTube stuff has kind of fallen to the wayside compared to my stream. I stream 5 days a week, and I've been putting a lot more effort into that than YouTube, simply because I didn't have the subscribers to monetize any of my YouTube videos anymore. So trying to make money of any kind on YouTube is pretty much a long shot at this point. But I also didn't want to abandon people who have been following slowly but surely over the last year and a half or so, and I didn't want to abandon Dauntless completely. I was just been taking a break because a lot of people got bored of the game and have already moved on. So a lot of the people that came to my streams and I got to play with sort of moved on, and it became harder for me to stay interested in it until big content patches. But if you have suggestions, if you want me to show you some builds, I can definitely get back into Dauntless very quickly and start coming up with things to help everybody out. So yeah, just let me know. And with that, that is the end of the video. And yeah, so take care, and I will talk to you all next time around. So let's rock it out, and I will see you all next time.